was killing myself with the food I eat, toxic to my health, till I got the news. There's another path that I could choose, and now
Welcome to the New Health Conversation TV show, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. I'm your host and moderator, Coach Steve Toth, and who's here with me today is Peter Greenlaw, who is always with me, not just today, and he's known as the world's most prominent investigative scientist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And our theme today is why protein may be the single most important nutrient we don't get enough of, and maybe one of the most misunderstood, right?
Right.
And I'm happy to announce our guest today. His name is Dr. Michael Colgan, and he's joining us from British Columbia, and he's the world's leading authority on protein. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Thank you, Steve.
It's good to have you, Dr. Colgan. And my opening question to you is, what was it like? I reviewed your bio, and if I spent some time on discussing your bio, we would probably need several hours of the show. So I was extremely impressed of what you have accomplished, and you probably just getting started, right?
Just getting started. 74.
There you go. And what I noticed is that you worked with Olympians. You worked in Colorado Springs, which is just 60 miles south of us here. And you also worked with some people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. And could you give our viewers just a little view into what was that like for you?
Oh, working with the stars? Well,
yeah,
I still do work with some of them. It's always a heady experience because they are slightly out of the normal rule-bound life that we lead, and therefore the unexpected always happens.
Would you be willing to give us maybe just one teeny example?
Gosh, teeny example. Okay.
It could be big too.
Oh no, here's a good example. A good example. I was at Sylvester Stallone's house in Los Angeles, and taking him through a workout, and he had on a 35-pound jacket and ankle weights and wrist weights. And his workout arrangement was right near his pool, and he fell in the deep end. And he got up, and you'd see that famous jaw jutting out. He walked to the shallow end. There was no way he was going to get off the bottom.
That's a great one.
Yeah, fantastic. So what was it like to work with the Olympians? I mean, I always respect them very much. I think once you're an Olympian, you're always an Olympian, right? What was it like to work with them?
Well, I'm still doing that, and they do have remarkable talent. Genetically, they are slightly different from most of us, but the majority have got to work as hard as anyone in order to achieve what they do. They have probably got to work harder. It's not that they're born super athletes. They're not. Athletics is a skill. It takes 10 to 20 years just to learn the basics of it.
Oh, so we got a few more years to go, Peter.
I think a couple.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doc. So we've been getting a lot of requests from our viewers that they really would like to begin to hear from us what's the protocol, what are the things that they can put into their lives to really solve all of these problems that we've been talking about on these shows. And this is our 8th episode today, and I know that I'm ready, and I know you're ready, and everybody's ready to start hearing and writing down probably what is it that we can actually do to really live a healthy life in a world that doesn't really provide us with a lot of choices, or at least healthy choices. So since you happen to be one of the world's experts on protein, we would probably start with protein. I know it's a very misunderstood item because even I'm not understanding it. So I'm going to learn something
You are.
today.
Definitely.
So let's begin. Tell our viewers what is it about protein that it's so important, and why most of us really don't pay that much attention
Right.
or are leaving it out.
Well, I started working on it in the 70s, and it was then even considered to be a common food, and people thought that proteins that came from chicken or came from beef or came from fish were all exactly the same, or came from soybeans, and they had no conception that protein is actually the most complicated nutrient that we eat. Every working unit in the body is a protein. All your enzymes, the hemoglobin that carries your oxygen, all your genes, every muscle cell, all your organ cells, all your brain cells are all made of different proteins. The human body makes 350,000 of them, all different. Some of them as many as 34,000 amino acids long. And they've got to be exact. So when people think that protein is a simple food, they are completely misled.
Wow.
Well, Dr. Colgan, one of the things you taught me, and I want to say he's been an incredible mentor. He was a big contributor to my first book and really opened my eyes to protein. So I think one of the things, Dr. Colgan, let's just start with, you taught me about the human body. If you repeat that, about the dry weight of the human body, if you drained everything out of it.
Yes, more than 50% of the dry weight of the body is proteins, and the 350,000 different ones. And if you want to check this, you can go online to the Human Proteome Project, and you can see the latest information there.
And the second thing, Dr. Colgan, let's clear this up right away. There are a lot of people that are confused about chicken, fish, meat, whatever. And of course, one of the things that happens in the process that I learned from you is that you are destroying the enzymes. And I was told once that if you start out with a chicken breast, so let's say it's about 100% protein, by the time you cook it, you're probably left with something like 20% of the protein left. And then the other part of my question is, or to clarification, let's clear up this whole idea about using soy protein, period, as a source of protein.
Well, you have to look at the areas of the world where soy is the major protein. The people are very low in muscle weight. They don't live a long time. And it's not that the body cannot cope. The body can cope, but it ages the body quite fast because the amino acid profile of soy protein is not particularly adapted to the human system.
Isn't that amazing, Steve?
Yeah.
Because so many people talk about soy protein, but they don't really understand. It's not the same. I mean, and Dr. Colgan, so I think that it's important that people understand that protein is just something that most people don't even understand. Why don't you explain the impact, starting at about age 25, of the disease, which you taught me about, called sarcopenia?
Yes, around about 25, you've reached your limit of growth. And if you don't have the right proteins in your diet and you don't exercise, then you gradually lose muscle. By the time you're 60, you've probably lost half the muscle weight that you had. Now, that's a very important thing. People think, oh, well, I've got less muscle. But muscle is half the pumping power for your blood. Half of the power that pumps your blood around comes from your muscles. Then if you lose muscle, your heart has got a much harder job to do. Also, if you lose muscle as you age, your body cannot pump the blood enough to your brain, so it gets short of oxygen. So you put yourself in double jeopardy of both heart attack and stroke by losing your muscle.
And then what about your opinion, at least you taught me, aren't many people that are in nursing homes on canes and walkers, and also if you can comment also about dementia being a major sort of side effect of sarcopenia as well. But aren't there many people that really, if they just had a great source of protein, that many of these challenges they have as they age would certainly be better? The quality of their life would certainly be better, right?
Yes, I think it's a vicious cycle, Peter, because what happens is people lose muscle, then they feel less like activity, then they do less activity, then they lose more muscle, then they feel less like activity again until they finally, by the time they're 65 to 70, they're sitting in a chair. And once you sit in the chair, you've had it.
Doctor, something just kind of opened up for me. I lived in Boulder for like 12 years, and I was a vegetarian for a number of years. And there's lots of people in Boulder, Colorado, who are vegetarians. How do they get protein? And I also know that what's really, at least when I lived there, what was really very favored by almost everybody there, and we're talking about, 100,000 people, is soy. Everybody is eating soy for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. What's up with that?
Well, for a while, as I said before, your body can, when it's young, it can deal with it. And it does in Asian countries where soy is a major source of protein. But it doesn't, the body doesn't deal very well, so it ages faster. Now, one of the things, I used to send a lot of athletes to Boulder, and I did that because of its height, because of the less oxygen in the air, the body is forced to make more red blood cells, so that when these athletes then come down to sea level, they have got more oxygen supply. And it's a common thing in athletics. Right? It's done all the time. If you don't do it, you're at a terrible disadvantage. The athletes that I sent up there, a lot of them were endurance athletes, and they ate vegetarian-type proteins, but they didn't generally eat soy. They ate vegetarian proteins with a better amino acid profile because I guess they'd learned from people like me. So it is possible to put together a vegetarian protein that almost matches the amino acid profile of whey protein, which is probably the best that we know in terms of its biological value. But it's difficult to do it, and it's expensive.
Well, Dr. Colgan, we're going to talk about that in a second. I want to come back, though, to my other point about if you can just, again, for the athletes and just normal people that are watching this show all over the world, why this misconception about protein with steak and chicken and fish and things like that, it just isn't the same, right? If you take a chicken and you cook it, the amount of protein left, it goes down dramatically through cooking. I'm not suggesting eating raw chicken. I didn't say that. Can you just comment, though? Because, and especially football season has started, one of my favorite things, and we have these enormous linemen that are in tremendous shape, but they have these huge stomachs. And it was my understanding that part of that is because they're ingesting so much protein, like from chicken and beef, et cetera, and because the body can't process it, it actually causes toxins, one of my favorite subjects, and the body literally retains water to kind of dilute the toxin. So can you address that for the audience?
Sure. When you cook a protein, it becomes what is called denatured. In nature, proteins have their amino acids joined together by bonds called sulfur bonds. They're joined into dipeptides and tripeptides. And the human body has a specific transport system in the gut for taking those intact proteins into the bloodstream. Now, if you cook it, then you destroy them. So you're down to breaking up those bonds, and the body therefore cannot absorb as much of the protein. It's pretty simple, really. I mean, the physics of it and the physiology of it are simple.
Well, Dr. Colgan, one of my favorite expressions is, what if you did, I'm speaking to the athletes in the audience now, what if you didn't know what you think you know, and what if everything you thought was wrong? Because here, for a long time, athletes have been loading up on proteins, which they thought were doing them good, But the point is that they weren't really getting as much protein as they thought, and because you broke down the amino acids, right? Like the branch chain amino acids is really what we're talking about within, let's say, a whey protein, correct, Dr. Colgan?
Well, the branched chain amino acids are some of the essential amino acids, and because isoleucine, leucine, and valine, that's what they're called, because they are prominent in muscle tissue, they become sort of favorites of athletes. But it's not so much that you break them down; it's that you break the bonds between them down. Right. If you heat proteins or you process it in various ways. So I cover all this in my book, The Anti-Inflammatory Athlete, and the work that we've done since 1981. I covered the work through till last year in that book.
Well, and also I know that again, your background is amazing. I mean, we could spend the whole show just going through your bibliography, but basically, you've studied pretty much every kind of protein there is, right? I mean, vegetable proteins. Why don't you just give us an overview of the proteins you've studied, and then I want to move into what you believe is the best protein source from a whey protein standpoint, and then we will talk about if someone's looking for a vegan protein, what they're going to look for in both of those examples.
Right. Well, gosh, it's so much to go over. We have tested pretty much every protein there is. We've tested them with athletes, with active people, with people in hospitals with wasting diseases. And up till a little while ago, it wasn't so complicated, and we used to measure the biological value of these things. And it's still the same biological value, but because of government regulations, it's now called the PDCAAS, and I'm not going to go into all that. But the biological value essentially means how the protein is digested, absorbed, and used in the body. And you can measure it in various ways. And one of them that we do is to measure the accretion of muscle tissue in athletes, that is, the gain of muscle tissue. And that's a pretty good measure.
Well, leading up to this, I know that when you were doing your investigation about proteins, you actually, when you came upon what you believed was the best of the best of the best, you actually put your athletes and yourself, right, on a 30 or 40-day trial of this protein that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But why don't you share with the audience, a lot of athletes listening to this, and I believe it was with your triathletes, right, that you had done the study with, and what convinced you based on the science that this was the way to go as far as moving forward with all the research and all the proteins that you had looked upon? Because we want to give the audience a protocol so that they're going to go out and shop proteins. They're certainly not all created equal by any mad stretch of the imagination. And after more than 30 years of research, for you to come upon this protocol of the protein and what it would need to contain. But before we do that, let's just talk about what you saw in this study that so convinced you that, wow, this is pretty amazing.
Well, the first thing, Peter, is that the protein that you're talking about that I used with the triathletes was a protein we had tested long ago. And first started to test it in 1981. And in 1993, I wrote a little book about it called The Right Protein for Muscle and Strength. And it is an undenatured whey protein concentrate. And I was quite surprised to find it used again by a particular company and to be able to use it with athletes. And as soon as I saw it and put it and took it to my lab, I knew it was the same protein because they had a particular chemical signature. And so I tested it with triathletes. The top-level triathletes, and I wouldn't have done so if I didn't know what protein it was already, because you couldn't interfere with people's training by doing that. And it proved to be exceptionally good, as we had found before, but it really had an exceptional effect on the triathletes. They were all under 10% body fat when we started, and over 30 days, they lost 3% body fat. Now, that is remarkable. In my research life, I've never seen that much loss of body fat without a loss of muscle.
Wow.
That's amazing. I mean, these are triathletes. I mean, you're going
Yeah.
from 10 to 3% body fat.
No,
That's
10 to they
7,
lost
sorry.
3%.
Right,
yes.
10 to 7, right? So for the viewers, if they're going to go out and look for a protein, because that's what we want to do. We want to say, look, go out to your health food store tomorrow, et cetera. What in particular is in this protein? I think it's important that we also make a clear distinction between denatured and undenatured protein, and particularly New Zealand. If you're going to go and get a protein, at least from what you've taught me, you want to look for a New Zealand protein, but it also should include more than just the protein itself, correct?
Oh, yes. Protein by itself is one of the mistakes that is commonly made in the bodybuilding sports, and also by it's sort of leaked into the strength athletes, and you see football players doing it too, taking additional proteins without the minerals and the cofactors necessary for their digestion. And you talked about people with sticking out bellies because of the problem of too much protein. That's fairly common. It's fairly common, and it's a big mistake because protein can't be properly utilized by the body unless it has a whole slew of minerals and cofactors with it.
And those cofactors would be things like the enzyme protease, right? Which my understanding is that protease takes the big protein molecule and breaks it down into these tiny little components called peptides, again for absorbability. Is that correct?
Well, protease does that, and the body does produce its own protease. But some of the athletes, they try to get around the problem of having large amounts of protein by using large amounts of enzymes. It's not necessarily a good idea because what they don't realize is when you take a large amount of enzymes, you also have to have more minerals. You have to have cofactors for the enzymes. So it gets pretty complicated, and that's why people make this terrible mistake. They think that protein is simple. It's actually the most complicated nutrient we eat.
Okay. So, yeah, and I really do appreciate all that and all the work that you've done for the last, 30-some years. But here's the thing. So if I put my viewer hat on and I'm tuning into this show, I would be saying, okay, so there's a lot of scientific jargon that we're using here. And I'm not going to become an expert.
I'm trying not to.
Yeah, and I'm not going to become an expert like the doctor is. And so, but I want you guys to boil it down for me and make it simple so that first of all, when I go to the grocery store, I know what to buy, I know how to cook it to have it better for me. And then if I need to add additional things to my meals, then I know what to do next. So can we start like at the beginning how the normal public thinks? Like they're going to go to the store this evening.
All right, well, let me do this. Since this is the doctor and I'm more the citizen scientist. Let me give you my explanation, and then I think Dr. Kogan, who actually taught me this, all right? So first of all, let's distinguish between denatured and undenatured protein, okay? Denatured protein is basically what happens in the pasteurization process in North America, where they heat the protein. And like he was saying, when you heat the protein, you break the bonds. What you want is undenatured protein, meaning it hasn't been pasteurized, not exposed to heat. The reason that he goes for New Zealand protein, and you can buy it. You can go to a health food, you can get a New Zealand protein. Make sure it's undenatured, okay? Meaning it hasn't been pasteurized. Because in New Zealand, the finest proteins, they use a high filtration, low temperature process, okay? In addition, you would want to make sure that protein did contain additional protease, not massive amounts, but extra. And what he's referring to in terms of minerals, we're not talking about iron and calcium. We're talking about trace minerals that are basically the periodic table, okay? You know the periodic table from physics and chemistry, right? So, well,
it's been a long time.
But when he talks about the cofactor, what he means is that these minerals that are trace minerals, these tiny little minerals like selenium and boron and molybdenum, okay, even arsenic and gold and silver, all need to be in our foods in general. This is what has been destroyed in our soil, not just in protein, but just in general. And you'll look at a mineral supplement and it'll have 10 or 15 minerals. What he's talking about, what he used with these athletes was shakes that contain 70 of these trace minerals, 70. And then the other thing you'd want to look for is something called a prebiotic fiber. In other words, prebiotic means that the body then can produce the good flora to once you break the proteins down for absorbability. That's the minimum. And then, of course, you don't want any soy. You don't want any artificial sweeteners. You don't want any artificial coloring, any of that kind of stuff. And the cool thing about the New Zealand cows, they're not shut up with antibiotics. They're given no hormones, and they only eat grass. Because cows that are fed corn, actually, it destroys their immune system, and they have to shoot them with antibiotics. Otherwise, their stomachs would explode. So again, not all proteins are the same. New Zealand protein is the best in the world because of this rare thing, the way they process it. The cattle are only fed grass, and they don't use high-heat pasteurization. Would you say that's a pretty good summarization, Dr. Colgan?
That's not bad, Peter, not bad. I think the cows, it's true that most cows are fed in what are called confined animal feeding operations, and they are fed the most terrible food. The one that I think is really, really disgusting is the use of chicken feathers as a cow food, which is legal in the United States. Now, you can imagine the protein that's produced in the cow by eating chicken feathers is not the same as the protein produced in a cow out on the range. It's fairly simple. It looks the same to when you go into a store, but it's not the same at all chemically. So undenatured is what we always use with athletes, because any denatured proteins just don't work.
Okay. So do these athletes eat like a chicken breast? And
oh yes,
if
they don't stop normal food, but we try to get them to eat organic food. We try to get them to eat grass-fed meat and try to get them to eat wild fish. And that's one reason I live on this island where I am right now, in Salt Spring Island in British Columbia. We breed our own cattle. In fact, I can look out the window right now and see them. And we breed our own sheep, and we eat wild fish, and we grow all organic vegetables, and we have all organic fruit. And when athletes come here, that's exactly what they eat.
Yeah, great. By the way, Doc, when I first contacted you on the phone, or actually, no, I did it some other way. But when I saw your picture, I saw you either on a horse or some animal, and I thought it was your grandson. And I looked at it again, and I enlarged it, and I'm going like, oh my God. You look, so what I'm trying to get at, and what I'm trying to show to the viewers, is that you do walk your talk, because you don't look your age at all. I mean, there is something about you that makes you look really young and, how do I say this?
Vibrant.
Vibrant, and there's this childlike, beautiful energy about you. Are you aware of this? I'm sure you are.
Well, I think the major purpose of life is joy. But I have to say, years and years ago, I had the opportunity to, with a group, to talk with Warren Buffett. Mm-hmm. And the group asked Warren Buffett, of course, being the most successful investor that's ever existed on Earth. They asked him, well, what is the best thing to invest in? And he answered immediately, yourself. He said, unless you look after yourself, nothing else matters. And he gave a really good example that I'd like to give to the viewers. He said, I am going to give you a car, and it's any car you want. There's only one stipulation. It's the only car you are ever going to have in your whole life. So you can think, how much are you going to look after that car?
That's
very
a great story. Also, Dr. Colgan, I think you agree with this, that I've said on this show in the past that food will really never be enough again. And it's almost like even this incredible denatured whey protein from New Zealand still needs to be enhanced. It's not, you're not going to find trace minerals in just a normal whey protein, even if it's from New Zealand, and the enzymes and the prebiotic fiber and things like that. So again, to Steve's point about the viewer goes out to the supermarket unsuspecting, or to even a natural place or an organic place, etc. I think what we want to provide for them is say, look, that's a great start with an undenatured whey protein, but you can tell they're not all created equal, and adding these other things will make it even better. See, that's what his athletes took. You got to understand,
Yes.
what we're talking about with the undernatured whey protein, with the trace minerals, with the prebiotic fiber, with the protease, that's what his athletes took. No artificial sweeteners, no corn syrup, no high fructose corn syrup, nothing like that. So it's a great start.
No donuts?
No donuts, not usually anyway. And so it's important that the viewers, again, from the protocol, that we begin to lay out and say, look, wonderful start. You can start with a New Zealand undernatured whey protein. However, still not enough. That's the point. When I talk about it, and you know I've talked on previous shows, food will never be enough again, even if it's organic. We must enhance. And Dr. Colgan, really, I think that's one of our biggest points on this show is awareness to people to say, listen, what if you didn't know what you think you know, and what if everything you thought you knew was wrong? Because just relying on food, even if it's organic, or Dr. Colgan, he's eating grass-fed and all that, still not enough, because those animals are eating in soil that doesn't have the trace minerals, that doesn't have prebiotics, that doesn't have protease. So we want to simply say, look, if you want to look like Dr. Colgan, then maybe
at what age again? 70?
74.
He can do one-handed.
That's amazing.
He can do one-handed push-ups. I mean, he's in unbelievable shape. I mean, I obviously have met him in person. However, it really does make a difference. You know, the book. There's a famous book out now that says that food matters. Like, no kidding. However, still, the dietitians and everybody, they're still focusing on. I mean, honestly, eating healthy is never going to be enough again, and exercise is wonderful, but even those two together cannot make up for what nature has we've destroyed. Steve, when the earth was formed, when we had all the volcanic eruptions and the volcanoes would spew out the minerals and the rare earth elements, we had brontosauruses that weighed 50 tons that ate grass and leaves. If we unleashed one of those things in Denver today, in Mile High Stadium where the Broncos play, that wouldn't feed them for 10 minutes. They'd eat all the grass and the thing, because there's no nutrition in the food anymore. It's not just the protein. And then you wonder, when you talk to elderly people, what are they most fearful of? Falling down, breaking their hip. In many cases, it's fatal. And Dr. Colgan, don't you think a big part of that is sarcopenia and lack of lean muscle mass? Because they aren't getting a great protein source over the course of their life. They're eating chicken, they're having fish, they're doing cattle, beef. And they don't have a source like whey protein that is so critical to the human body, which is what this whole show is about.
I think that most of the problem with falling in elderly people could be avoided, but that requires a change in the health system, Peter. So I don't know that it's going to happen. But for all the people who are listening today, you can certainly prevent sarcopenia in your lifetime. You can, by doing the right thing with what you put in your body, you can prevent sarcopenia, and you will never have the problem of fear of falling.
And Steve, you know, we talked about it before, even with Dr. Messina on one of our previous shows, that medicine today is based on procedural intervention. Once you fall and break your hip, we got the best doctors going. But what we need is preventative intervention, which is the TDOS protocol and the TDOS syndrome, which I've identified. And so that Dr. Colgan is really saying that same thing. Simply by, if you just did this, if you just had a whey protein shake from New Zealand with all these other things, just one meal a day, it could make a huge difference in people's lives in living healthier longer, not living sicker longer, which unfortunately is the fate of too many people today. Now, Dr. Colgan, before we run out of time, I want to also come back to, we have a lot of vegans that are watching the show, or people that are lactose intolerant, and let's touch on not all vegan shakes are anywhere close to the same. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I think most of them are not very good. And the major problem is getting the mix and making it at a price that people can afford, because you have got to balance the amino acid profile, and that's quite difficult. You can't use soy because it just doesn't work. You have to use things like peas and hemp and vegetable sprouts, and the cost goes sky high as soon as you start doing that.
So the point is, Steve, that, and again, even keep in mind, in a vegan shake, guess what you need? The 70 trace minerals. It doesn't change.
Oh, yes, you still need the minerals.
Yeah, and that's what used to be in the soil. See, nature's so amazing. So 100 million years ago, when the plants would grow, they'd suck up these minerals in the soil. The animals would eat them, and then the carnivores that ate the animals that only ate the leaves and grass, it was much more nutritious. That's not the way it's today. We know, based on 1936, that most of the trace minerals in our soil were destroyed. And I was shocked to learn we do need things in tiny, tiny amounts, like arsenic, like gold, like silver, but molybdenum and selenium and all these other incredibly powerful little minerals that are gone from our soil. So it's not just a matter of one, it's also putting these combinations of things together, which is what the viewers have been begging us to do, is to talk about the protocol. So here we go. We're talking about the protocol now, but the best protocol. We're saying for maximum effectiveness.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. However,
What?
I'm still being the generic viewer.
I understand.
Okay? And after this show is over, I'm going to get into my car and I'm going to go to the store.
Right.
And as soon as I go into the store, I'm going to make a right,
Yes.
because there's no sense going to the left, because that's where the cashiers are. So I'm going to make a right, and that's where all the green stuff is, all the fruits, okay?
Right.
And I'm going to buy some fruit. I'm going to buy some salad. I mean, this is what I do now.
Right.
And the next thing that comes up for me is, do I buy organic or do I buy non-organic?
Well, Dr. Colgan, you can weigh in on that, and then I'll give my opinion.
Sure. The reason that I live on this farm, and it is all organic, including all the meat, and we only eat wild fish, is exactly that. You get more of the trace minerals, other cofactors that the body needs. Now, that's not to say they're like they were 1 million years ago. They're not. And Peter and I both know the research that the only place you can find the minerals that existed 100 or 1,000 or even 1 million years ago is in a mine where they have been pressed from plant food into peat. And that's the only place they're left. And when you bring them out and you measure them, it is extraordinary how different they are from anything that's now on the surface of the earth.
Yeah, and there are probably 3 or 4 deposits of these minerals in North America, only in all of North America. It's not like they're in Iowa and they're in Kansas. They're not, okay? So the point is that the soil at one time, before they dammed up the Mississippi River, that used to flood, and it would bring the minerals from the mountains out into the soil. That's gone. And then we introduced herbicides and pesticides, which basically destroyed what was left. The point is about organic, in about 200 studies, they proved that nutritionally there was very little difference between regular and organic, but it was much cleaner. Now, in the case of Dr. Colgan, he's living on an island. That's a very specific eco-environment. For the rest of us, though, let's say we're getting organic from California or wherever it is, they're still spraying pesticides and herbicides on the field next door that are drifting over. They're saying that most organic has about 10 to 12% normal herbicides and pesticides, but even in organic, unless it's a controlled environment like Dr. Colgan's, they still use organic herbicides and pesticides.
Wow.
Now, organic is better. I certainly eat it as much as I possibly can. All I want to do is make people aware. Food will never be enough again, even if you do organic. We need more. That's why, and he's saying, protein, so critical, so misunderstood. And no, you're not going to cook up a chicken or a fish and get the protein that you need. We just simply have done such a poor job on this planet of destroying the soil. We better go and get these from the last sources that are available, from these rare deposits that are from, basically 100 or 1 million years ago, when these they're in mines. That's it. You're not going to go and get it out in eastern Colorado and dig it up in the soil anymore.
Get it.
No, it doesn't exist in the soils on the surface of the earth anymore, and that's a terrible thing. We hold this whole planet in trust for our children and our grandchildren. And what have we done with it?
Yeah,
Well,
so Dr. Colgan, also, I think for the athletes listening to us tonight, so in your athletes, and they certainly were doing organic, and you were doing organic chicken and meat and all those kind of things. Number one, do you agree that still, for maximum performance, that by having either a whey protein or a combination of a vegan with pea protein and hemp and the sprouts and many of the other things, what kind of performance things did athletes see when you started to put them on these protocols, enhancing what they were already doing? Because when I have friends that are triathletes that run 80 miles a week in training, and they still do 3 organic meals a day and don't smoke and drink whatever, and they still would have like 10, 12 pounds around their middle they couldn't lose. So Dr. Kogan,
Yes.
what kind of things, athlete performance, so an athlete listening to this would say, oh my gosh, I want to go out and do the best thing possible to maximize the performance, or just a normal guy that goes to the gym or works out 4 or 5 days a week like me, or again, just a normal person. What kinds of things can they expect to happen based on your research, based on the science that you've actually seen?
Well, there is simple things. One of them is that if you do lose fat, especially visceral fat, which people mostly carry today, if you do lose it, it's a loss of hanging weight. No, fat hangs. Muscle works. If you're an athlete of any kind or you're an active person, whenever you run, fat hangs. If it hangs like dead weight. It's got no muscle in it. It's got no movement in it. It is dead weight. So in the triathletes that I worked with, they lost an average of about 4 pounds of fat. That's a lot of fat. That's like taking 2 bricks off your back. So obviously, performance should improve.
And these were world-class athletes. This wasn't like, but so to see that dramatic of a change in them, imagine what this can do for just regular, everyday people walking down the street. I didn't know that about fat that's just like hanging off you. I mean, It makes perfect sense, right, Steve?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Okay, so we still got some time, so I'm taking you back to the store.
Okay.
So because this keeps amazes me. I'm just maybe amazing myself, I don't know. But the way I used to shop and the way I shop today is like day and night. I mean, come on.
Because you met me, number one.
Yes. So after I go through and buy some fruits, because I put them in the shake.
Good.
And they are the good stuff.
Yeah.
So I proceed to get some chicken and get some turkey, but these are already made. They made on the
right.
What you might call it?
Are they
the one that goes around?
Are they grass fed or corn fed, or are they hormones and antibiotics?
That's going to be.
You need to ask.
That's going to be my next step. Is that I'm going to have to find out.
This show's about awareness.
Where
you of all people.
Where are these things are being grown and what are they being fed? So yeah, I will do that. That's my homework. Okay, I don't do any milk products.
Okay.
I don't go to any aisles where anything is in a can. And I used to. I used to go in to buy chips. I don't do it anymore because I don't need it. I used to buy pop. I don't do it because I don't need it. So my trip to the stores have become quite simple. It's like 10 minutes.
Good. Think how much time you're saving, right?
And money.
So, Dr. Kogan, I know that's a little sort of off topic, but why don't you just comment on the fact that this whole notion of, somehow, unfortunately, if you go and get advice from a lot of people, they say, well, eat healthy and exercise. But again, the whole point is, I just don't think that strategy is ever going to be enough again.
Well, I don't think it's been enough for the last 50 years, Peter, because if you look, people are obviously being given misinformation. 2/3 of the American population is overweight. Humans are not naturally overweight. They have to be carefully conditioned to become overweight. And we have created a food supply that conditions people to become overweight. And we have created the information that tells them that that's all right, because otherwise they wouldn't be overweight. But we have an enormous problem. So it's clear that most of the information out there is misinformation.
Well, in a recent study in my upcoming book, I actually cite this study where they said that for a long time we relied on the RDA, recommended daily allowance of nutrients, etc. But in a more recent study, they examined what they call the RDI, the recommended daily intake of nutrients and micronutrients like trace minerals. And they analyzed just going shopping, even organically. This was in the United States. And they said that under their estimation, if you use the RDI, not the RDA, that we'd have to consume between 3,500 on the low side and 5,500 on the high side calories per day just to avoid disease, not to be optimum health. So this, you're right. I think this misinformation about we're going to go out and shop and to Steve's point, even the fruits and vegetables, it's still not enough. I mean, that's my point based on my research. I'm now seeing that we're getting this basically this information that's not correct in terms of everything that, again, back to what if everything we thought we knew was wrong? Well, guess what? Dr. Kogan, is it not turning out that way now? Everything that dietitians and nutritionists have been saying were based on the fact that the food they're talking about us eating doesn't resemble the food from 100 years ago. Not even close.
Right, it doesn't. And unfortunately, politically, it's very difficult for the administrations to say that because it impacts the commercial system. And so they don't say it. They just allow it to go on. But we have reached quite a crisis point. I really don't know what the future is going to be, but it doesn't look good for human health in North America.
Right, and to follow up on your overweight statistic, the recent study that I saw said that by 2020, which now is about 6 years away, we're looking at 80% of people overweight. I mean, this is completely unsustainable. And they just keep kicking the can down the road thinking that somehow it's going to be different. And look, I don't believe that 2/3 of Americans, or 2/3 of North Americans, let's say, are just completely lazy, eating fast food all the time. There's something else going on here. And of course, for me, it's the TDOS syndrome, which is toxicity deficiency leading to overweight and stress. And also, doesn't stress occur when the body doesn't get these micronutrients, doesn't get these trace minerals, doesn't get a good source of protein? Doesn't that stress the body out?
Yeah, I can give you one simple example. Every single day, your body has a special transport system that searches through the food you eat for iodine. And it takes every single molecule of iodine and it carries it reverently to your thyroid. And you need about 15, 16 micrograms of iodine a day. Not much. But the body has a special system just to move the iodine to your thyroid. Now, that's the same for every micronutrient there is. The body has special systems for them. And if they're not there, then yes, it goes into conniptions.
Yeah. Well, another thing, this is amazing, Steve. Dr. Kogan, you gotta go over this one. Eating a bad source of protein, I'm going to probably make a lot of people mad, but something like a hot dog. You told me what happens to you when you eat an inferior source of protein.
Right. Because your body is made of protein and every operating unit in the body is a protein, then the body can only make those with your DNA code according to the proteins that you eat. If the proteins that you eat are inferior, you will grow an inferior body and brain. If you eat hot dogs every day as your source of protein, you will grow a hot dog body and a hot dog brain.
New Yorkers. Are the New Yorkers listening right now, watching?
There's no way around it.
Right. Well, didn't you tell me, seriously, it takes like 3 months? Was I right? 3 months to recover from a bad source of protein?
Well, if you eat, say, a chili dog, then that chili dog is going to build into your muscles and into your brain for the next 6 months. It takes approximately 6 months to turn over the proteins. So you are going to be thinking chili dog and you're going to be walking chili dog.
That is so great. However, I think let's get real serious for a minute. Isn't this a major factor in our kids? I saw a statistic yesterday that 44% of high school students in English, 30% in math, and less than 20% in science. I mean, that's the amount that would qualify to go to college. What kind of impact do you think it's having on our children by these fast, convenient chili dogs, hot dogs, burritos, whatever it might be, these inferior source of protein. Do you believe that's a major contributing factor to this enormous slide in our kids' productivity?
I think it has, because it affects the brain, and it affects the brain long term. If you do it for years and years, then you are going to have inferior brain growth, you are going to have inferior intelligence, you're going to have inferior learning, and that's about what's happened.
That's frightening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I wrote all about it in my book, Save
That's
Your
why
Brain.
he's not optimistic about the future, because we get more and more fast food all the time, more and more.
Well, but then again, there's hope, and I think the hope is that it all boils down to personal responsibility and accountability. And I know we keep saying this, but we have to keep saying it because nobody's going to change this. There's no magic wands that we can employ here.
No government's
we would have done it already
right,
if
exactly.
we could have. So it's going to be up to every individual, and I think as long as we keep putting the messages out that we're doing on the show, and we keep informing people and giving people solutions that they can actually use today. Like, I learned so much about protein today that I will never look at protein the same way ever again.
Probably not going to have a hot dog, right? You don't want your brain to go foggy on you.
And I'm not going to have a hot dog, that's for sure.
But see, Steve, this show's about awareness. So Dr. Colgan is such an expert. He's just saying, look, this is what we know. We're not making it up. This isn't some kind of scare tactic. This is what happens when you eat inferior protein. And don't think that chicken, fish, whatever, that's the answer. It's not enough. We must have whey protein. Because, see, mother's breast milk is about 60% whey protein and 40% milk protein. Did you ever see a baby starving when it was breastfed? I mean, think about it. It's the world's most perfect food, right?
It is a very good example, the actual protein mix in mother's milk. Yes. But, you know, I'm not all that pessimistic. I think what I really think is that we should remember the wise words of Dr. Seuss. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose.
Well, that's true. And of course, the people that you've been working with, what's interesting about them is that they're all motivated, obviously.
Right.
I mean, they all very strongly motivated to be, in their best shape so that they can win the Olympics or do the movies or do whatever.
Well, and Dr. Colgan's working with these superhero people, right? Mm-hmm. And they thought they were doing the best until he got a hold of me and said, that's great, terrific start, still not enough. It's just like in the school lunch program, at least down here in the United States, Dr. Colgan, the government in its wisdom decided to expand, vegetables on the menu. And guess what? One of the new vegetables is in the school lunch program as we're just going back to school here in the States this week. Guess what the vegetable is, the new vegetable that they've approved?
Probably tomato ketchup.
How about pizza? Because of the tomato paste. How healthy is that? I mean, really, honestly, no, I'm serious. I wish I couldn't make that. I couldn't make it up. That's absolutely true. We've talked about it in previous shows, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you see how important protein is? Do you get it?
I get it.
And not all proteins are created equal. Not even close.
No. All right, so all these 70 ingredients that we have been talking about,
70 trace minerals.
70 trace minerals. Where
they
does
sell
somebody
them
get?
You can go to a health food store and you can find trace mineral supplements. Again, it's kind of like you need them all. So don't settle for 15 or 20. Don't let them try and say that bill of goods. Like Dr. Colgan was saying, this transfer system in the body, these trace minerals are so critical for that. So you need them all. Why would you shortchange your body? What do you think your body's going to say? If it needs 70 and you give it 15, what do you think your body's going to say?
Well, I believe that each human being should be just as motivated as any other athlete, because how do we know how many lives do we have? What if we only have this one?
Well, there you go. Like you said, one car.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if we treated our cars the way we treat our bodies, I mean, forget it. It would be a disaster. Yep. You get one shot at this. You got one body. There's no spare. And why would you be putting stuff in it that is doing this great harm? Because even in the world we live in, as we know, with the toxicity and all the things that are going on, why wouldn't you give your body every possible chance to operate at optimum? That's not eating hot dogs and chili dogs.
Yeah. Well, guess what, folks? The Conscious Hour is over again.
No.
It goes it goes really fast. And so I want to really thank our guest today, Dr. Michael Colgan. Thank you very much for being here with us.
My pleasure.
You've been absolutely enlightening. You have certainly changed my mindset about what's important. And also want to thank you, Peter. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here learning about protein today. This is like an important. I have been living for almost 60 years, and I have never really looked into. I didn't even know, to be honest with you, that protein is as important as I.
Well, I didn't know until
today.
Dr. Colgan, like I said, was a great mentor for me. And I was an athlete, as you know. I was a ski racer, tried out for the Olympics. So again, I thought I knew, and when I realized I didn't, what he taught me. And Dr. Colgan, I'm going to ask for forgiveness here, but gosh, I sure hope we could bring you on for another maybe show in the future, because I think we just barely scratched the surface of this topic.
And we got to wrap it up. So I want to also thank the technical crew behind there and people that are in the studio. And if you were touched, moved, and inspired by anything that we said, did, or whatever you experienced, come to our website at the new healthconversation.tv and engage with us, leave us comments, ask us questions, and we'll be happy to respond. Otherwise, until next time, it's always going to be a next time.
Yes.
And it's going to be as exciting. We're going to have to outdo now Dr. Colgan. How are we going to do that?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's a great guest.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks, Doctor.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
See you next time.
Was killing myself with the food I eat, toxic to my health, till I got the news. There's another path that I could choose.